is Bio 181, Chapter 8, and it's on photosynthesis. So the key concept, this is the overview for the chapter, is that in photosynthesis, which is a metabolic reaction, we're going to use light energy to drive the formation of glucose. So we're starting out with carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of carbon dioxide gas. We're going to combine that with 6 molecules of water, 6H2O, and we're going to use light energy. And so the light energy, I guess technically I should probably use it over here. So it's going to be a reactant, but it doesn't have any mass. So it's a little bit different than other equations. So sometimes it's written over the arrow, sometimes it's here. And then we have our chemical reaction. So the reactants are carbon dioxide, water, and light. And then the products, so what's produced, let's change colors over here. So the products are glucose, which is C6H12O6, and 1 molecule of glucose, and then 6 molecules of oxygen gas. So this is really the complete opposite of cellular respiration. The only difference between cellular respiration and photosynthesis is the energy. So the energy in photosynthesis is the light. Okay, so this reaction here, this is what's driving this. In cellular respiration, we would actually be running the reaction backwards. So we would be going this direction, and we would be producing, instead of light, we would be producing ATP. So you've already learned the basic reaction in cellular respiration. We're just going the other direction and changing ATP for light energy. So this reaction, we're going to be building something up. So the reaction is anabolic. So we're making a larger molecule from small molecules. We're requiring light energy, so that's endergonic. Okay. And let's just go forward to some basic anatomy. So we're going to really consider the case of plants. So photosynthesis does occur in cyanobacteria. So you can have, actually, most of the photosynthesis is in algae or cyanobacteria in the ocean. And they are capable, they're single-celled organisms. They are the precursors to chloroplasts. So cyanobacteria in the ocean is actually where a lot of photosynthesis happens, and it's the origin of photosynthesis. So these are single-celled organisms. For the purposes of this class, we're really going to be looking at eukaryotic photosynthesis. So in eukaryotes, remember that is an organism that has a nucleus. We're really focusing on plants. So plants, there are other eukaryotic organisms that are capable of photosynthesis, namely protists, but we're not going to be covering those in this class. So plants, the organelle that we learned that is the site of photosynthesis in a cell is the chloroplast. But first, we need to get inside of a cell. So if we consider a typical plant, right? So you've got your plant here, and here's the ground, got roots. All right. So the leaf is the part of the plant where photosynthesis generally occurs. Honestly, any part of a plant that's green is probably capable of photosynthesis. So some plants like the Octio and other plants in Arizona, like the saguaro, have photosynthetic stems. So they're capable of producing photosynthesis anywhere that they have these green structures called chloroplasts. But in most plants, that's going to be in the leaf. Okay. So it's worth learning this first vocabulary term, stomata. So if we zoom into a leaf and we look at the underside of the leaf, typically that's where you're going to find most of the stomata. If we zoom in there, you're going to find, so here's the underside of the leaf, okay, kind of a cross section. So here's leaf, oops, like this, okay. So on the underside, there's really these two cells that are going to open and close to allow gas exchange. So this is my leaf, okay. This is the top, this is the bottom. And what we really are looking for is one of the reactants in photosynthesis is carbon dioxide. So we need to get carbon dioxide into the leaf. And so this hole through which the carbon dioxide moves into the leaf is called the stomata. And it consists of two cells, they're called guard cells, and they open and close in response to the needs of the plant. So this is a stomata, okay? So the stomata is a pore or a hole for gas exchange, So in a plant, we're really trying to get carbon dioxide in because that's going to be the carbon that's used to make sugar and glucose. So that's the stomata. Once inside the leaf, then you have a whole bunch of cells, right? You've got tons of cells in the leaf, okay? And we actually often look at these. If you're in an in-person class, we'll actually look at the leaf cells. So if you were to zoom in on a cell, okay, you would find that in that cell, right, there's a cell wall generally, okay? And then of course there is a plasma membrane inside of the cell holding everything in. And then you're going to find these structures called chloroplasts. They are organelles. And they're about the size of the mitochondria. Again, they actually originated as free-living bacteria. So through the process of endosymbiosis, which they engulfed those free-living bacteria millions of years ago. So now you have chloroplasts in the cell, and you, in a leaf, will have lots of these. So you'll look in the cell and you'll see lots of these individual organelles, which is a membrane-bound compartment, and that's the site of photosynthesis, right? So that's the chloroplast. So into the chloroplast goes the carbon dioxide, right? So CO2 is going in there, right? And out of the chloroplast is oxygen is going to be produced. Okay. Also going into the chloroplast is another reactant. So water, I'm going to just go over here, usually comes up from the roots and then is brought over. I'm on the left side of the screen now. It's brought into the leaf this way. So water is going to diffuse into the chloroplast through the process of osmosis. So water is going in as well, okay? And the whole goal is ultimately to get out a molecule that's going to be used to make glucose. And we'll talk about what that is, but ultimately we want to make sugar, okay? So glucose is C6H12O6. And that is the purpose of photosynthesis, is to make sugar. We're going to capture the energy from light. So light energy is going to come in to the leaf. It's going to go straight through that outer cell. So it's going to go from the top. Generally, the cells that are filled with the chloroplasts are on the top of the leaf. The light's going to come in. It's going to be absorbed and drive this reaction. Now we're going to zoom in to within the chloroplast. So within the organelle, that is the chloroplast, there's a couple more key anatomical regions. Okay. So here, I'm going to erase a little bit. Okay, so I don't want to lose the idea that we are now within a cell. So often what happens is I draw a chloroplast and people think, oh, that's the cell. But no, this is in the cell, right? So this black thing here, this is the cell, right? This thing here is the chloroplast. So this is the chloroplast. And there are many of these, multiple of them within a single cell, okay? So now I'm going to draw it over here. Okay. Just going to enlarge it so we can talk about the anatomy. So I changed my mind. I'm drawing it over here. So I've got my chloroplast. This is my organelle. And it has a double membrane. Okay. So it's got two phospholipid bilayers that are enclosing it and separating it from the rest of the cell. Inside, there's really two regions of interest. One of them is a thylakoid, and one of them is a stroma. So the thylakoid, within the cell, there's actually these kind of quarter-like flat discs that have an inner compartment to them. So it's compartment within the compartment. And then they're stacked one on top of another, sort of like hamburgers would be stacked or a stack of coins, right? And each of these little membranes that is enclosed in here is called a thylakoid, okay? So that is a thylakoid, T-H-Y-L-A-K-O-I-D. And there's lots of these stacks. Then outside of these stacks, there is fluid. So there's fluid. I'm going to use just maybe a different color here. Okay. So there's this fluid that's outside the thylakoid. And this fluid is called the stroma. Okay. Not to be confused with stomata. Okay. So the fluid out here is the stroma. So these are the two locations in which photosynthesis is going to occur. The first set of reactions is going to occur in the thylakoid. And then the second set of reactions is going to occur in the stroma. So the reactions in the thylakoid, these here, these are called the light reactions. The light reactions. And these used to be called number 2, the dark reactions. They have been renamed to be more accurate. So it's the light independent reaction, light independent reactions. Okay. And the important part that happens here is what's called the Calvin cycle. So the Calvin cycle. All right. So that's the anatomy and the overview for photosynthesis.